To create the pattern for your tree skirt, you'll need some wrapping paper. It's especially helpful if your wrapping paper has the grid on the back for cutting straight lines. You're going to use your wrapping paper to create a 42-inch square. To do this, you'll probably need to tape 2 sheets together in the middle, as most wrapping paper is not 42 inches wide. Once you have your square of wrapping paper, fold it in half in both directions and crease it. This allows you to find the center of your square. Then take a Sharpie marker or a pencil with a string tied to it and pull it out straight so that it reaches the end, and have a friend hold the center as you create your circle. For the bottom of your tree skirt, you will need one whole section of fabric as wide as your tree skirt pattern. Go ahead and trace your circular pattern on your single piece of fabric. Once you have your circle, go ahead and fold it in half. Fold it in quarters. Fold it in eighths. And fold it one more time into 16ths. Now you have the pattern for each one of the segments of your tree skirt. To create the final pattern for the individual segments of your tree skirt, go ahead and trace the folded circle. Once you've traced your pattern, measure a 1/2 inch out from each edge. Now you have a pattern for each individual segment that's about a 1/2 inch bigger than your cone, so plenty for seam allowance. The next thing we'll do is pick 16 pieces of fabric, or 8 pieces of fabric, or 4 pieces of fabric, depending on how you want your pattern to repeat. So what happens if your scraps aren't as long as your pattern or as wide as your pattern? Well, you can take a couple different scrap pieces and connect them together in true quilter piecing fashion. Now you've got a piece together segment. It'll make your tree skirt look more unique and use up all of those little scraps of fabric. Now lay all your pieces out so that your pattern is how you want it. Put each section together face to face. You might want to stick a pin in the side to remind yourself which side to sew together. Once you've sewn all your pieces together, then we'll go ahead and flip it over and iron the seams on the back. You do not want to connect the last 2 pieces. We'll leave that open. The top side of your tree skirt is all ironed and ready to be connected to the back. Fold the back of your fabric into quarters. Then take an iron and press the center. Now you can easily find the center on the back of your piece. Now get yourself an 8-inch paper plate, or somewhere close. A 7-inch paper plate will do as well. And cut a hole in the center of it. We're going to use this to create the center hole where the tree will fit in your tree skirt. Now lay the back of your tree skirt over the top of the front of your tree skirt so that they're face to face and the edges meet. Pin the pieces together around the edges. To create the center opening, cut a tiny hole in the center of the bottom of your tree skirt. Lay your paper plate with the hole over the top so that the holes match up, and then trace around your plate. Now flip your trimmed tree skirt over. Go ahead and find the opening where you did not sew together the last two pieces on the top of your tree skirt. Then lift up one of the unconnected pieces. Cut your bottom fabric along the edge of the last unconnected piece. Now we're ready to sew the two pieces together. We'll sew them along the outside edge of the circle and leave about a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Once you've sewn the outer edge of your two pieces together, lay them out flat and pin the pieces along the circle that you marked earlier. Now we'll go ahead and sew right along the marked circle. We'll start at one open end and end at the other so that you're not closing the circle together. Once you've sewn around your circle, go ahead and cut the excess fabric from both the top and the bottom, leaving about a 1/2 inch of extra fabric. Now go ahead and sew one of the open edges of your skirt. Use the unsewn open edge of your tree skirt to turn your piece right side out. Now iron your piece so that the edges are crisp and it's nice and flat. Once your piece is nicely ironed, cut 2 strips of fabric slightly longer than the edges of the opening and about 3 inches wide. Fold each of your strips in half lengthwise and iron them. Then open up your strip and fold each of the edges into the center line and iron them down. Fold the piece in half again and iron it closed. Now trim the edges of your tape, your border, so that they form a little triangle. Fold the edges in and then fold your border around the edge of your Christmas tree skirt and go ahead and pin it. Once you have your border pinned, go ahead and sew both edges down. Last, we'll make a way for our piece to close together when we put it around the tree. So cut 2 strips of Velcro the same length as the opening on your tree skirt. The soft side of your Velcro will go on top of one edge of your fabric. We'll go ahead and sew this down. When you sew on Velcro, you'll need to sew each edge lengthwise. The stiffer piece of Velcro gets sewn on the back side of the piece. And now your skirt is ready. Thanks for watching. For more great craft videos, check out the JCPL YouTube channel.